Hi students, welcome to lesson number 33 on backward class movements in India. The Constitution of India provides positive discrimination for other backward classes along with scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. It should also be noted that the word class and not caste is used in the Constitution. Historically, there are large number of castes that were of low status and were also subjected to varying levels of discrimination, just short of untouchability. These were generally the service and artisan caste or the so-called Shudras who occupy the lowest rungs of the caste hierarchy. These groups, which need not be based on caste alone but are generally identified by caste, were described as the socially and educationally backward classes in the Constitution. The term backward communities was used for the first time in the officially parlance by the state of Travancore in the 1930s to include all educationally and economically backward sections. Madras province used it in the 1930s to refer to the castes which are just above untouchables. Though backward classes became a significant social and political force in some parts of the country, especially South India, even earlier they got national attention following the introduction of the Mandal Commission report by the V.P. Singh led government at the centre in 1990. The students will be able to understand the different aspects related to the collective actions of the backward classes in India. Now, we will understand who are the backward classes. Mac Callenter in his book Competing Equalities, Law and the Backward Classes in India observes that backward classes is a very loose concept. Sociologically, these classes consist of a large number of the backward castes which remain above the scheduled caste and below the upper caste. These castes consist of intermediate castes, the cultivating caste, the artisans and service caste. In the traditional social and economic structures, while the intermediary castes were involved in the production process in the land, the service caste and artisans provided services to the society. The backward classes known as the other backward classes are other than those backward classes which include the Dalits or the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes. Like Dalits, they were also victims of caste system and social oppression. Their cause lies in inequality of status and unjustness of caste system. Western education, liberal polity and reformist ideology acted as catalyst in awakening the backward classes to question the supremacy of the upper caste. Leadership was provided from both within the community and outside. Ideology of the movement was also diverse, ranging from Sanskritization to anti-Brahminical to revivalist and reformist. The backward classes emerged as a powerful social, economic and political class during the post-independence period in the rural areas as a result of the policies of the state. The principal policies which impacted them included the land reforms, which consisted of the abolition of the landlordism, putting ceilings on the size of the land holdings, consolidation of land holdings and green revolution in the selected areas of the country. Legal constitutional measures conferring equal status and welfare schemes for lower backward classes. Besides the state policies, the changes which occurred from within the society, population growth, breaking down of 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 system also affected them. On account of the numerical strength, along with the control of the village land, they came to control the village vote banks. All the upper backward classes are relevant examples of this change. Jats, Yadavs, Kurmis, Gujars, Kapus, Kamas, Reddis, Lingayas, Patels, Kolis, Marathas, etc. in different regions of the country, while the intermediate castes came to control the affairs of the village society. The artisans and the service castes joined the ranks of the marginalized groups of the wage labourers, marginal and poor farmers. According to 𝗂𝗽𝗪𝗪's commissions of 1952, the backward classes are more than 3,000 in numbers in India, and Mandal Commission 1980 said that they are around 52% of the Indian population. Initially, Government of India didn't recognize the caste as the only basis of backwardness and hence rejected the recommendations of the first Backward Class Commission, which advocated caste as the only basis of backwardness. But now, after the acceptance of the recommendations of the second Backward Class Commission, the most widely accepted notion of backward classes is synonymous with backward caste as well. Now, we will understand about the backward class movements. Backward class movements represent both ritual as well as material issues. Among Dalits, these problems were more acute. They were mainly against the disabilities imposed by caste and exploitative nature of caste system. There are three types of backward class movements as discussed by M.S. Rao in his book on social movements in India. They are on the basis of the structural cleavages among different strata. And the first type is Brahmins versus others. In this type of movement, Brahmins were on one side and the interest of all other castes were pitted against their interest. Justice Party movement was one such movement. They were limited to South India as Brahmins in North were generally poor and there were other castes that were dominant. Jogi movement in Punjab is one such movement in North. Second type is Brahmins versus lower non-Brahmins. Generally, Dalits were outside the purview of such movements and Shudras were the main force. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 Samaj movement was one such movement. And third type is Dalits versus all others. They were all various types, namely Sanskritization movements which focused on ritual upliftment. But there were other types of movements also like SNDP movements which were focused on creating a ritual order for its own by discarding the Brahmanical traditions. Now, we will talk about the backward class movements in pre and post independent India. Apart from this classification, backward class movement can also be classified as pure backward class movements and backward class movements linked with other movements like peasant movements. In the pre-independence period, backward class movements had the following significant effects. That is, they led to increased participation of backward classes in other occupations. Second, the efforts of the backward classes led to the initiation of policy of reservation. Third, they also led to increased political participation as demands for universal adult franchise was raised by the movement. Fourth, these movements made liberations of the backward caste as an issue in the freedom struggle, where Mahatma Gandhi himself led the movements like Guruvayur Satyagraha. Fifth, their efforts finally led to adoption of a constitution which rejected caste altogether. Post-independence backward class movements were totally different from pre-independence movements. New types of movements emerged with the following features. First, although constitution rejected caste, but in practice it continued. As a result, Sanskritization movement continued, but it came to an end with the acceptance of Mandal Commission recommendations. Second, the other backward classes started to compete for similar benefits that were given to the Dalits. But this also lost its legitimacy with the acceptance of Mandal Commission recommendations. There were some mixed movements also when addressed the other problems of backward caste also. For example, many women's movements took the cause of the backward classes as well. The socio-religious reform movements of the 19th century were led by the upper caste Hindus who condemned the caste system and untouchability, but they achieved only limited success. Several factors and forces in the 19th century and 20th century created class consciousness among the lower caste who took upon themselves to struggle for caste equality. Their efforts led to the organization of several lower caste movements in southern and western India. These movements were encouraged by a combination of several factors such as the British policy of divide and rule, the growth of Western system of education, introduction of Common Indian Penal Code 1861 and Codes of Criminal Procedure 1872, and the extension of the railway network, growth of national consciousness and the popularity of the modern political though. This created a social and political climate in which the caste system could not be defended. Now, we will discuss about the northern backward class movement versus southern backward class movement. Social movements for backward classes were historically stronger and popular in south, and it was southern India that pioneered such movements. The Brahmins had monopolized the high caste domination over the lower caste in South India. In contrast, the Brahmins were not only the only high caste in North India. Their domination over the lower caste was shared, thus diluted by several other dominant castes like Rajputs, Kayas or even Vaishyas. In North India, the organizations like Arya Samaj spread the message among the backward classes that it was the karma, not the birth, which determines the place of a person in the society, and it encouraged the backward classes to Sanskritize themselves by tracing their lineages to the high caste. The backward classes in South India questioned the domination of Brahmins in culture, administration and politics. Anti-Brahmin Nada movements in Madras was one of the earliest such movements. The most effective expression of the Dravidian revolt against the Brahmin domination in South was provided by the self-respect movement. Now, we will discuss about the important backward class movements in South as well as in North India. First one, the self-respect movement. The self-respect movement was founded by Ramaswamy Naicker in 1925. It was designed to improve the living conditions of the Dravidian people, to expose the Brahmin tyranny and the deceptive methods by which they control all spheres of Hindu life. In 1944, Naicker founded the Dravidian Kazakam and asked the members to wear black shirts whenever possible to symbolize the present day downtrodden condition of the Dravidians. The organization of the party was to be based upon units in each village, taluka and district. The main objective of the Dravidian Kazakam was proclaimed to be the achievement of a sovereign independent Dravidian Republic federal in nature, with 4 units representing the linguistic division and each divisions having residuary power and the autonomy in the matter of internal administration. It would be an egalitarian society to which the depressed and downtrodden could pledge allegiance. Naicker called upon the people to renounce all the titles conferred upon them by the British. This increased the Dravidian Kazakam's popularity among the masses. The principal objective of Naicker was to remove all superstitious beliefs based on religions, and no member was allowed to wear any religious marks on the forehead. The Dravidian movement, which had started out as a movement for the upliftment of the Adi Dravida and the Dalits, later got involved in active politics, and DMK became a political entity with a massive following of backward classes and Dalits in Tamil Nadu. Second such movement is Sri Narayana Dharma Paripalana Yoga movement. The non-Brahmin movement founded reflection in Kerala under the leadership of Sri Narayana Guru, who belonged to the backward Eshava caste. He established the SNDP Yogam with the branches outside the Kerala state also. He launched a 2-point program for the upliftment of the Eshavas to root out the practice of untouchability. As a second step, Narayana Guru built a number of temples which were declared open to all castes. He also simplified rituals regarding marriage, religious worships and funerals. Narayana Guru achieved a notable success in transforming the untouchable groups into a backward class. He criticized Gandhi for his faith in Chaturvarna. which he considered the parent of the caste system and untouchability. He gave a new slogan, that is, one religion, one caste and one God for mankind. Third such movement is Justice Party movement. Dr. T.M. Nair, P. Chetty and C.N. Mudaliar came together and founded the Justice Party 1916. It was resolved to form an association of non-Brahmin Hindus under the name of South Indian People's Association. Chetty asked all non-Brahmins to unite and draw the attention of the government to the grievances voiced in the manifesto. He said, let all non-Brahmins do everything needful to ensure a continued educational, social, political and economic development as broad and enduring basis, and then their future as British subject will be brighter and more prosperous than it is today. It was argued that an association for the political advancement of the non-Brahmin community should also be formed to function alongside the South Indian People's Association. In August 1917, the South Indian Liberal Federation came into existence. It was announced that the Justice Party's objective was justice for all Dravidians through the establishment of a separate state. His idealism, however, was influenced by the immediate practicalities of securing required reforms for the betterment of the non-Brahmin community. Nair was critical of the Congress Party for the adoption of independence as its new political faith. The Justice Party set itself up against all negative methods of passive resistance and non-cooperation, which Nair saw as a subversive to any order and stable government. Now, the 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 𝗧 started by Phule. Jyotirao Govindarav Phule struggled for the upliftment of lower caste through his 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 𝗧. Belonging to the Mali caste, which supplies flowers to the Peshwa's family, he had suffered humiliation which made him to turn against caste inequalities. He strongly criticized the Brahmanical domination in the name of religion. He was also critical of Indian National Congress for neglecting the weaker sections. The aim of his organization was to achieve social justice for weaker sections of the society. He opened a number of schools, orphanages for the children and women belonging to all castes. Later, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar took up the responsibility of fighting for the causes of the depressed caste in the 20th century as a part of Indian national movement. His efforts culminated in the form of enactments of the reservation system for socially underprivileged sections in the Constitution of India. The mobilization of backward classes in North has been around two issues. First, their electoral participation, and second, the reservation. The mobilization on other issues like those related to the farmers also got linked to the electoral politics. In North India, they have been mobilized by Charan Singh, socialists including Ram Manohar Lohia, Karpuri Thakur and different political parties like Samajwadi Party and Rashtriya Janata Dal in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. They linked the social issues of the backward classes with the economic issues of the peasantry. The appointment of Kaka Kalekar and Mandal Commission and the implementation of the latest reports were the results of the backward class mobilization. The Mandal Commission was the result of the consistent demand by the backward class leadership to get the Kaka Kalekar commissions, the first backward class commission report, accepted. The Kaka Kalekar commission was also the result of the demand for which commission by the backward class leadership at the time of independence. But Kaka Kalekar's recommendations of class as the criterion for identification of the backward classes and rejection of the commission's report by the parliament led to the demand of appointment of another commission, which would take social and educational backwardness as the criteria for identification of the backward classes. The implementation of the Mandal Commission report, however, has not settled the issue of reservation. Newer groups continue to demand to be recognized themselves as the OBCs or other backward classes. Whether a community can get itself identified as an OBC is a political question, and it depends on the political factors. Now, we will understand the differences in the northern backward class movements and the southern backward class movements. First, the northern backward castes resorted Sanskritization and asserted their rights through new rituals and stories glorifying their history as well as mythology. But southern backward castes rejected Sanskritization altogether. Second, in comparison to backward classes of North India, the backward classes in South India were mobilized much earlier. They not only got reservations in the government jobs, but they were also mobilized into the social movements and entered politics in South India much before the backward classes in North India. South Indian backward classes movement was anti-Brahmin. Southern backward castes completely countered Brahmins and asserted themselves as Dravidians and Brahmins as invaders. Thus, in South, non-Brahmins asserted their superiority and cultural purity. They even called themselves as separate Tamil nation and refused to acknowledge Brahmins as part of this land. Fourth, in northern backward classes had numerical strength as well as resources, clout in many areas. With the advent of the democratic system, they leveraged it to mobilize the support and obtain reservation for backward caste. Thus, unlike southern backward castes, they did not adopt a confectionery stance. Backward castes in north formed their association, which resorted to petition and memorandum to get more rewards for them. Fifth, backward class movements in north met with less success as compared to their southern counterparts. One of the reasons was that upper caste in other states like Bihar and UP reacted more sharply and often tried to overcome such movements. The backward classes are also known as the other backward classes or the OBCs. They consist of the heterogeneous groups, that is the intermediate peasant caste, artisans and the service caste. While the intermediate caste among the OBCs or the upward backward have emerged as among the most assertive social group in the country. The other sections of the OBCs, also known as the most backward classes, remain excluded from the purview of development and empowerment. The backward class movement started late in North India as compared to South India. The mobilization of the OBCs has been around two issues: their electoral participation and the reservation. The mobilization of the backward classes on their recognition as OBCs, appointment of backward class commissions, politics related to them. The support and opposition to them continue to remain relevant in the politics of social movement in India.